Okay, so in the last class, I had also discussed about face to face communication. So, is there any doubt regarding face to face communication? I had also discussed regarding the dynamics of effective face to face communication. So, is there any doubt regarding this topic? So, I will move ahead with this topic. So now I am going to discuss regarding the advantages of face-to-face communication. All right. So there are a lot of advantages of face-to-face communication because we can see the other person and interact with the other person personally. So there are a lot of advantages. So let's see what are the advantages. Face-to-face communication, it creates more motivation. So whenever you interact with a person and you can see the person, both of you are personally, both of you are being able to interact with one another personally, and that definitely creates a lot of motivation. And face to face communication definitely helps to motivate one another, because you can see one another, you can see the reactions, you can see the actions, you can see the expressions, you can see the body language of the other person. So whenever you are using this mode of communication, that is face to face communication, definitely it is going to motivate both the speaker and the listener in the process of communication. Next is, it makes easier to sense what a person is really thinking. So whenever you see the person, whenever you see the face of the person, and whenever you see the body language of the person, it gets quite easier to understand understand the person. But when you don't see the person, in case of, suppose in case of written communication, you cannot see the person. Your communication is totally dependent upon the words that are being used, but you cannot see the other person. So that is why your communication is totally dependent upon the words, isn't it? But in case of face to face communication, you can see the other person. So you can see the expressions of the other person, you can see the body language of the other person, you can see the reactions of the other person, and that makes it quite easier for you to understand the other person, and the other person can also understand you. So it creates a lot of understanding. Face to face communication creates a lot of understanding between both the individuals, and it also like decreases misunderstandings, because by looking at one another, by interacting with one another personally, you can clear your doubts, you can ask all the queries, you can clear all the doubts. So that is why it lessens misunderstandings, and it increases, it lets you understand one another. It definitely, the third point is, it creates a bond. It definitely creates a bond. It creates a bonding between both the parties, that is the sender and the listener, because y'all are present there, because both the parties are present there, and they can personally have an interaction with one another. Whereas in case of telephonic conversations or in case of written communication, this bonding is not created, because most of the time, words are, the meaning of the words are not correctly understood, or the tone of the voice is not correctly understood. So that is why face to face communication helps to create a bonding. So uh, the major discussions are definitely, considered to be conducted face to face. It cannot be it cannot A written mode cannot be used to conduct a discussion, or a telephonic mode cannot be used to conduct a discussion. So if there is something important, you should always opt for face to face communication, because in that way you can understand the other person, you can like create a bonding, we can create a bonding, and this will also lessen the misunderstanding. It enhances trust. The fourth point is, it enhances trust, and you will be able to trust the other person will be able to trust you. It creates a bonding, and also it develops trust in between both the parties. And the
Hey,
fifth and the
hey,
important
hey,
point is,
hey.
yes, please unmute yourself. Who is
Oi.
shouting? Please mute yourself. Who is shouting? All of you, please mute yourself.
Sorry, sorry, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Yeah, it's okay, but mute yourself. Mute. Okay, so another important, the fifth point is instant feedback can be received. So this is one of the most important part of face-to-face communication. You can receive the feedback instantly. In case of written communication, you have to wait for the other person to respond. You have to wait for the other person to reply. But in case of face-to-face communication, you will get an instant reply, you'll get an instant feedback. So this is the best part of face to face communication. You are being able to receive the reply instantly. So these are some of the advantages of face to face communication. There are certain disadvantages as well, but we should there are a lot of advantages of face to face communication. So a lot of people, they prefer to use this mode of communication, that is face to face communication. Next, I'm going to discuss about the tone of voice. So do you have any idea regarding what is tone of voice? So it's basically the way a person speaks to someone. Okay, it's the way a person speaks to someone. There's a tone whenever we speak. Now I am explaining you something. I am explaining you something. There's a tone that I am having currently. So the tone of voice is a very important part of the communication process. Even if you are saying something uh, that is very rude, but if your tone of voice is good, the other person will listen to you very nicely. But even if you are saying something very good, but your tone is your tone is not good, the tone of your voice is not good, then the other person won't like to listen to you. All right, so it's basically the way a person speaks, whether the person is speaking politely or the person is speaking rudely. It does not depend upon the words that you are using. Okay, your tone of voice is not dependent upon the words you are using. It totally depends upon the tone. Your tone is dependent upon whether you want to be rude to that person, whether you want to be polite to that person. So accordingly your tone is going to change. Whenever a person is angry, the tone of voice is different. Whenever a person is happy, the tone of voice is different. So with different emotions, the tone of voice, it keeps on changing. But we should try to maintain a good tone so that the other person is not offended. We should try to speak gently. The words are the secondary thing. If your way of speaking, if your way of explaining something is good, then the other person won't be offended. The other person would like to listen to you. But if your way of saying that particular thing or explaining something is very bad, then nobody will be interested to listen to you, and the other person might feel offended as well. because your tone is not good. Your tone seems rude. Your tone seems rude, and it looks like as if it sounds like as if you are angry. So that is why you should always maintain a polite tone. You should always maintain a good tone. You shouldn't be too loud, you shouldn't be too low, but you should maintain a moderate volume. Along with that, you should maintain a polite way of talking to people. So that is what tone of voice is. It plays an important role in the process of communication. So, if somebody is angry and you are trying to have a conversation with that person, and that person suddenly shouts, you are going to understand, isn't it, that the person is angry. When a person is sad, the tone will be something different, isn't it? By when you will notice, when you will hear that tone, you are going to understand that yes, this person is angry, this person is happy, this person is sad. So it determines a lot of things in the process of communication. All right. So even if you are trying to say something which the other person does not want to listen, but if your tone is good, then the other person is going to like tolerate, and the person will not be offended, not feel offended. But if you are saying something beneficial, but your tone is not good, then the other person won't like to listen to you. So that is why you should maintain a good tone of voice. Am I clear regarding this? So some additional information is also given, like when you want to focus on a particular word. Okay, so what do? You say that word. You like whenever you want to particularly focus on one word or two word, you tell that word in a way that the other person understands that yes, you are emphasizing on this word, that this is something that is that he or she wants to say, or that he or she means. Okay, so a sentence, few sentences are given, the same sentence is given several times, but the focus on the words are different at different times. So in the first sentence, it's I where the focus lies. So I didn't say he borrowed my book. So the tone will be different with I, because I want to focus on that particular word, I. I did not say he borrowed my book. Now here I'm focusing, I am pressurizing on the word did not, and I want to, highlight that word. So that is why my tone has changed. So whenever you want to highlight something, you automatically our tone changes. So whenever you want to highlight a particular word or a particular sentence, so at that point of time your tone automatically changes. What you should notice is but you should notice that change. Sometimes your tone can be a little offensive, so in that case you need to control your tone. You need to have a control over your tone, because the whole conversation is dependent upon the way you talk. It depends upon your tone, it depends upon the way a person speaks, it depends upon your tone. So that is why you have to take care of the tone. All right. Okay, so the next topic of this chapter is body language or nonverbal communication. So, I had already discussed regarding nonverbal communication, verbal and nonverbal communication in the first chapter itself. So, mainly there are two types of communication, verbal and nonverbal communication. So, verbal is totally dependent upon the words. When we use words to communicate, that is known as verbal communication. Whenever we use signs, gestures, body language, posture to communicate, that is known as non-verbal communication. Verbal and non-verbal communication takes place at the same time in case of face-to-face communication, and also whenever you are talking to someone over the telephone or your cell phone. So verbal and non-verbal communication takes place at the same time. When you have a face-to-face conversation with somebody, you can see the expressions of the person, you can see the body language of the person, you can see the gesture of the person. So that is how you can also understand a lot of things from the non-verbal gestures. So body language is a non-verbal communication, and it plays a very important part in the process of communication. So along with our words, we should also take care of the body language. We should take care of our body language so that there's no wrong interpretation, so that there's no wrong interpretation, and body language should be proper because the other person should because the other person can see us, the other person can see our body language. So our conversation is also dependent upon our body language and along with the words. So the conversation is not only dependent upon words, it is also dependent upon the body language, that is non-verbal gestures, non-verbal communication. So that is why we need to take care of our body language. So non-verbal communication or body language, it includes a lot of um, things, that is facial expression, the way you stand, the way you sit, the gestures are basically the movements of the hands or our arms. The movements of our body parts are known as gestures. ठीक है, जब हम अपने हाथों को यूज करते हैं कम्युनिकेट करते वक्त, so that is known as gesture. So I would just like to show you this. Okay, so we use our hands, isn't it? So the movement of our hands is known as gestures. The movement of our arms is known as gestures. All right, so whenever we communicate with people, whenever we have a conversation with people, most of the people, they have this habit of using their hands. I too have this habit of using my hands, but you should know how to use your hand so that your hand does not signify anything negative. So you should take care of that. You should not point fingers on others. All right, you should not point fingers on others. You should not use this kind of gesture. You should not point on somebody, but you can definitely use your hands whenever you are having a conversation, whenever you are delivering a speech. Definitely at times you can use your hand. So that is known as the movement of your hand and the movement of your arms. It is known as gesture. All right, the next part of non-verbal communication is eye contact. So in case of face-to-face communication, you should definitely maintain eye contact. If you do not maintain eye contact, that means you are not confident, you are shy, or you are not at all interested. So whenever you're having a face-to-face conversation, you should maintain eye contact. Next is your breathing rate. So this is also a non-verbal communication. So whenever you breathe fast, so that means you are nervous or you are tired, and if your rate of breathing is normal, that means you are not stressed, you are confident. And if you are not being able to breathe, then also that is also a sign of stress. So your breathing rate is also a part of non-verbal communication. So you should take care of all these things when you communicate with people. Then swallowing or coughing. So when people are nervous, they keep on swallowing. They ऐसे ऐसे करते हैं, swallow करते हैं, घूट. So this is also a sign of nervousness. Coughing is also a sign of like if you are not having cough or cold, if you are not having cough or cold, but out of nervousness also people they cough, so you should take care of that. Then blushing, so the cheeks turn pink or red, so that is known as blushing. That is because somebody is feeling shy or nervous. That is also a part of non-verbal communication. Then fidgeting is basically moving from here and there, changing your position, using your hand too much, not being static in one position, so that is fidgeting. So if I keep on using my hands like this, so this is fidgeting. If I adjust my position like this constantly, if I adjust my position like this, that is fidgeting, and that happens out of nervousness. So these are the few things that we need to take care of when we are having a conversation with somebody. And non-verbal communication, as I had said earlier, it plays a very important role in the process of communication. It uh, almost 75% of the communication is dependent upon the non-verbal communication. Only 25% or only 30% of the communication is dependent upon your words. So that is why you need to take care of your non-verbal communication. You need to take care of your expressions, you need to take care of your gestures, you need to take care of your body, body posture. You should take care of all these things, and along with your words. So you must be careful whenever you communicate with people. You must be conscious and careful whenever you communicate with people, and your expressions, your body posture should not signify something negative. In order to avoid that, you should always take care of your expressions, of your gestures and postures, etc. All right, so that's all about body language. Okay, the next topic is verbal communication. I already had a discussion regarding verbal communication earlier, so today I will not be discussing regarding verbal communication in detail. So, whenever we communicate with people using words, that is known as verbal communication. There are two types of verbal communication. It can be divided into two categories. One is oral, another is written. So do not be confused regarding written communication. It is also a type of verbal communication. If you search the meaning of verbal communication, then you'll get to know that it means communicating with the help of words. Whenever we communicate with the help of words, so written communication is also a part of verbal communication, because whenever we write and communicate, we are using words, isn't it? Otherwise, how will we be able to how will we be able to communicate without using words in the written mode? So we have to write and communicate. That means we are using words and communicating, so that is verbal communication. Whenever we are using words and communicating, that is verbal communication. Spoken, that is oral communication, and written communication is considered to be verbal communication. So I will be discussing about physical communication in the next class, because I have, the pop-up has already come and says that there's only few minutes left. So I would just like to know if you have any doubts. If you have any doubts, please let me know.